Let's turn to Michael Lynk for more on what's happening in the Middle East. He's a professor emeritus of law at Western University in Canada and a former special rapporteur for human rights in the Palestinian territories. Michael, how concerned should we be that this escalation by Iran, also by Israel with its limited incursion into southern Lebanon and a week of strikes, cross-border strikes between Hezbollah and Israel will really spiral out of control and lead to a much more wider conflict in the region?
Look, we have every reason to want to be concerned with the events over the last 2 weeks. First, obviously, the pager attacks in Lebanon, then the escalation of bombing and the assassination of Nasrallah, and now this extraordinary missile attack on Israel coming from Iran. We would have expected this, and indeed Israel would have expected to have this kind of retaliation for what's been going on over the last several weeks. Now, I think there are a couple of paths that we may be following in the days and weeks to come. Number one, this could be a very muted response by Israel, as it did in April with the prior missile attacks. I think that's unlikely, quite frankly, because this is a much more severe attack by Iran. It used much more high-grade missiles, and it was much wider than what happened several months ago. The second option is that Israel undertakes, if you like, a painful and sharp but rather isolated strike on Iran, which may be on, say, its oil facilities or its military installations as a poke in the nose to Iran to say, this is our retaliation. And for Israel to do either of those, it would require the United States speaking forcefully to Israel to be muted in what it does. What I fear, and I think we should all be fearing, is the third option, the third road that Israel may be taking, which is a decision to make a strategic transformation of the entire region by significantly degrading Iran's military capacity and its nuclear sites. We've seen an article in tonight's New York Times quoting Naftali Bennett, the former prime minister of Israel, who said this is the biggest opportunity that Israel has had in the last 50 years to change the face of the region. And he's asking now that we should be going ahead, we Israel, to destroy Iran's nuclear capacity and to destroy their major energy facilities.
Well, Michael, is there a fourth scenario here that you did not mention? And is there a possibility that Israel would take a direct hit on Iranian leadership?
Well, that would be part of the third option, I guess. But it could very well do that. It would have to be very strategic in how it wound up trying to accomplish that. And I suppose Israel is not making much difference, making much distinction between the moderate president of Iran that's recently been elected and who spoke of a need to try to lower temperatures when he spoke at the United Nations last week, and the more militant religious leaders in Iran who were the ones apparently behind the urging that there should be a massive retaliation by Iran towards Israel. So
is there a diplomatic solution instead of a military option here to de-escalate?
There always is that. The question is whether or not Israel will take that, and probably even a more astute way of saying that, will the global north and the United States in particular compel Israel to do that? Israel has got a very advantageous position right now. The United States has just seen what it says was a massive attack on its closest ally in the region. We're in the middle of a presidential election where America's power, certainly on its allies, tends to wane. And we have Israel, I think, with a very emboldened right-wing leadership that would very much like to take advantage of trying to transform the region, as it's been doing with Gaza, now with respect to what it sees as other grave threat, which is Iran.
Michael, does anyone at this point have any kind of sway or leverage over Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who some might argue is really not after a peaceful resolution to any of this?
I don't think he is after a peaceful resolution. I think he's got much more to gain by by playing what he thinks is a strategic game to degrade the enemies that he sees all around him in Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Houthis in Yemen, and of course, what they see as the head of the snake, which is the Iranian regime. I suspect that he is being emboldened by Israel's many tactical victories over the last couple of weeks, and thinks that he hasn't got restraint from the United States. He hasn't got restraint from anyone else in the international community. Now is the time to strike while the iron is hot.
All right, we'll leave it there. Michael Lynk, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.